The morning of the wedding was overcast, with clouds that mirrored the weight in my chest. I sat before the vanity, my reflection pale and solemn in the mirror, clad in a white gown that wasn't meant for me. I wasn't supposed to be the bride. My sister, Sophia, was. But after Daniel's tragic car accident that left him in a wheelchair, she had vanished, canceled the wedding, blocked his number, and left town with a new boyfriend. My parents were in shambles, trying to maintain face in front of the affluent Lennox family, owners of the largest art conglomerate in the state, and so they turned to me. "You're quiet, Amara," my mother said that morning as she adjusted the veil over my head. "You always were the obedient one." I wanted to scream, but I nodded instead. I had never met Daniel Lennox before. I had only seen him once, tall, dark-haired, with a brooding gaze that haunted you even before the accident. Now, he was a recluse, broken and bitter, recovering in his estate far from the city. The marriage was a formality, a deal to save the reputation of both families. When the vows were exchanged, Daniel barely looked at me. His voice was even distant, mechanical. There was no kiss. After the reception, I sat in the guest bedroom, assigned to me in the Lennox mansion, feeling like a placeholder in someone else's life. The silence in the house was crushing. That night, he didn't come to the bedroom. I didn't expect him to. The next morning, I found him in his studio, walls covered in unfinished paintings, some slashed in frustration. He was sitting in his wheelchair, staring at a blank canvas. "You can just live your life and ignore me," he said without looking at me. "I didn't agree to this, and I won't pretend." "I didn't ask for this either," I replied softly. "But we're here now." He turned then, surprised. Maybe he expected me to cry or storm out. But I didn't. I poured him tea instead and left it on the table before walking away. That became our rhythm. I cooked. I cleaned. I answered his nurse's questions. I stayed out of his way. Then one afternoon, a week into our silent arrangement, I found him struggling. His wheelchair had gotten stuck in the gravel path of the garden. He was breathing hard, sweat lining his forehead. I rushed to him without a word, grabbed the handles and pushed him back onto the pavement. He didn't thank me. But that night, he didn't shut the door when I passed by the studio. Over the next month, the silence between us thinned. He began speaking more. Sometimes, he let me stay while he painted. He didn't paint beautiful things anymore. His canvases were full of rage dark colors, harsh strokes. One night, while watching him, I asked, "Why don't you try painting something gentle?" He looked at me with a mixture of annoyance and curiosity. "What would you know about it?" "Nothing," I admitted. "Only that if you keep pouring out pain, you might forget what joy looks like." He scoffed but didn't throw me out. It happened subtly. He began joining me at dinner. He asked about my favorite books. He started sketching again, first in private, then in front of me. And then came the breakthrough. I found a painting he had hidden behind the studio door. It was a portrait of, not perfect, not flattering, but raw, alive. "You made me look braver than I am," I whispered. "You're braver than anyone I know," he replied. It was the first time he looked at me like I was real. One rainy evening, after a session with his physical therapist, Daniel collapsed. I found him on the bathroom floor, trying to drag himself up. "Get out," he growled. "No." I dropped to my knees, tears mixing with the rain on his clothes. "Let me help you." He looked away, ashamed. "Why are you still here, Amara?" "Because I made a vow. And because I care." He didn't respond, but he let me help him into bed. He didn't push me away that night, and just like that, the walls began to crack. I found a rhythm with Daniel that felt fragile but real. He told me about his childhood, his first gallery, his dreams before the accident. I shared my own quiet ones, tucked away in journals. He smiled more, even laughed. Then one afternoon, while I was arranging flowers in the living room, Daniel wheeled in and said, "Would you go on a drive with me?" I blinked to drive. "There's a place I used to go. I'd like to show you." It was the first time he invited me into his world. We drove to a cliffside overlooking the ocean. The wind was sharp, the view endless. Daniel looked at me. "This is where I proposed to Sophia," I nodded, heart sinking. She said, yes, here. But she left me months later. He turned to me. And yet, when I come here now, I don't think of her. I met his gaze. What do you think of? He hesitated. You? Sitting with me? Listening? Staying? The air between us thickened. I reached out and took his hand. He didn't pull away. Sophia's sudden appearance at our doorstep felt like a ghost emerging from the past. She stood there, dressed immaculately in a designer coat, her blonde hair cascading down her shoulders like spun gold. Her eyes, once warm and teasing, were now laced with a burning intent. I need to speak to Daniel, she said, brushing past me like I was just the maid. I blocked her path. He doesn't want to see you. Her eyes narrowed. That's not your decision to make. Daniel appeared behind me, his wheelchair silent as ever. He looked from me to Sophia, a flicker of something unreadable in his gaze. Let her in, he said quietly. The pit in my stomach grew. Sophia's charm returned instantly as she sat across from him, draping her coat dramatically over the arm of the chair. I've missed you, Daniel. I made a mistake. I was scared. But I'm here now, and I'm ready to make it right. He studied her, eyes cold. What changed your mind? I realized I still love you. I've always loved you. I let fear get in the way. But now that you see I'm not completely broken, that I'm painting again, that I might recover. His voice had steel in it. She blinked. That's not fair. I was devastated too. I didn't know how to handle it. Daniel laughed bitterly. You didn't handle it. You ran. Sophia turned to me, as if just remembering I was there. Amara, you understand, don't you? I didn't mean to hurt anyone. I was confused, but you don't love him. You can't love him like I do. I said nothing. My hands trembled as I clutched the hem of my cardigan. Daniel's gaze flicked me. You don't get to decide how she feels, he said, voice sharper now. And you don't get to come back and expect everything to be like before. So, what? You're choosing her now? My sister, you can't be serious. Daniel turned fully toward her. She's been here every day. She's seen me at my worst. She never looked away. Not once. Sophia's mask cracked. Her mouth opened, then closed. She rose abruptly. This isn't over. She stormed out, slamming the door behind her. Silence filled the room. I stared at the closed door, heart pounding. I felt exposed like the world had seen too much. Daniel wheeled over to me slowly. You didn't tell me she called. I was afraid that you'd want her back. He lifted his hand, touched mine gently. You have nothing to be afraid of. I didn't fall in love with your sister. I fell in love with who I thought she was. I looked at him, uncertain. And now, I'm seeing clearly for the first time. And I see you. Tears welled in my eyes. Over the next few weeks, Sophia didn't give up. She showed up at Daniel's therapy sessions, called my parents, posted nostalgic photos online to garner sympathy. My mother even asked me if I would consider stepping back. You've always been the reasonable one, Amara. Reasonable doesn't mean disposable, I replied coldly. Daniel continued therapy with renewed intensity. One afternoon, I arrived at the center to find him standing shaky, supported by parallel bars. But standing Daniel, I rushed to him. He looked at me, breathless but triumphant. I wanted you to be the first to see. I threw my arms around him, careful but full of joy. I'm so proud of you. We celebrated quietly at home that night. I cooked his favorite meal, and he insisted we sit at the dining table like a real couple. There was laughter, stolen glances, touches that lingered longer than they should have. When I went to clear the plates, he stopped me. Stay, we sat in silence for a while. Then he reached into his jacket and pulled out a small box. This was meant for Sophia, he said. I had it since before the accident. I thought I'd throw it away, but then I realized it was never really hers. He opened the box to reveal a delicate ringa swirl of sapphires and diamonds. Amara, I know this is unconventional, and I know I've been difficult, but I've never been more sure of anything in my life. Will you truly be my wife, not just in name, but in heart, In Seoul? I stared, breath caught in my chest. Yes, I whispered. He slid the ring on my finger. It fit perfectly. Outside, rain began to fall. Inside, I felt only warmth. The days after our cliffside drive were filled with an unfamiliar warmth between Daniel and me. It wasn't just the physical closeness, but the way our silences spoke volumes. The way our small gestures, a brush of a hand, a shared glance, hinted at something deeper growing inside us. But outside the quiet bubble we created, the world was anything but kind. Sophia's shadow still loomed over us. She wasn't ready to accept that her place beside Daniel had been quietly taken. Her calls were frequent at first, then escalated into messages laced with anger, accusations, and desperate pleas. My parents, too, grew uneasy. The family's fragile peace was cracking. They questioned me about Daniel, about the future, and about the choices I was making. Amara, you must remember your place, my mother warned one evening over dinner. You're not the bride who is meant to be. Don't let this attachment ruin everything. I looked up from my plate.com, but resolute. Maybe it's time to stop living in the past and start building something real. Daniel had been invited to a prestigious art gala in the city, a chance for him to reintroduce himself to the world and to his patrons. He hesitated at first, unsure if he was ready to face the public after the accident, but I insisted. You've done more than just survive, I told him one morning. You've started to live again. It's time to show them. The night of the gala arrived in a swirl of excitement and nerves. Daniel, dressed sharply despite the lingering stiffness in his legs, was a vision of quiet dignity. I watched from the sidelines as patrons admired his paintings, asked questions, and praised the raw emotion that bled from each canvas. Then Sophia appeared. She was radiant, wearing a gown that shimmered under the gallery lights. Her smile was cold, calculated. I see you've changed the face of this event, she said, nodding toward Daniel. He didn't respond. I felt a flicker of anger on his behalf. The old Daniel who wouldn't he let her disrespect him without consequence. Sophia turned to me. You're the replacement bride, right? The charity case. I stepped forward, meeting her gaze. I'm the woman Daniel chose to stand with. Not because of family pressure, but because of who I am. A hush fell over the room. Sophia's smile faltered. Daniel finally spoke, voice steady and clear. This isn't about the past. It's about moving forward, and that means accepting the choices we make. The confrontation was brief but decisive. Sophia left the gallery that night with more than just bruised pride. She left behind the control she once wielded so effortlessly. Back at the mansion, the tension slowly eased. Daniel's health improved steadily, and our relationship deepened. We planned small trips, dinners with close friends, and moments stolen away from the world's gaze. But life, as it often does, had more challenges in store. The Lennox family's business empire was at a crossroads. A hostile takeover threatened to dismantle years of hard work. Daniel, as the heir, was expected to step up, but his injury and recent withdrawal left a leadership vacuum. I saw the strain in his eyes. We'll face it together, I promised, squeezing his hand. You're not alone. With the support of our closest allies, we strategized ways to protect the company. Daniel's determination surprised everyone. He refused to be sidelined. Our fight wasn't just for business. It was for the future we were building. One evening, as we pored over financial reports in the study, Daniel paused. Amara, he said softly. There's something I want you to know. I looked up, curious. Before the accident, I kept a journal. It's filled with thoughts, fears, and hopes, some of which I never shared with anyone. He handed me a leather-bound book, its pages worn and filled with his neat handwriting. Reading it, I saw a man vulnerable and strong, broken but hopeful. I understood then how much pain he carried, and how much he wanted to heal. I want to share everything with you, he said. No more secrets. Tears blurred my vision as I nodded. But just when we thought the storm was passing, Sophia returned with a vengeance. This time, she wasn't alone. A new ally had entered the picture, a cunning business rival with his own agenda. Together, they plotted to drive a wedge between Daniel and me, using every trick in the book. Rumors spread. Lies took root. The media spun stories of scandal and betrayal. Through it all, we held firm. Our bond, tested by fire, grew only stronger. The turning point came during a tense board meeting. Sophia and her accomplice launched their final attempt to oust Daniel. The room was charged with hostility. But Daniel stood tall. Literally and figuratively, he rose from his wheelchair, steady but unyielding. Gasps filled the room. "I'm not broken," he said firmly. "And neither is this company." The board members looked at each other, then nodded in agreement. Sophia's face drained of color. That moment marked the beginning of the end for her schemes, and the start of a new chapter for Daniel, me, and the Lennox legacy. The air in the boardroom was thick with tension, but Daniel's unwavering stance had shifted the tide. His colleagues, once skeptical of his capabilities, now looked at him with newfound respect. Sophia sat in stunned silence, her carefully constructed plans unraveling before her eyes. After the meeting, Daniel turned to me, a tired but genuine smile breaking across his face. "We did it," he whispered. "Together." I reached out and squeezed his hand. "There's nothing we can't face if we stand side by side." The weeks that followed were a whirlwind of change. Daniel resumed his role as CEO, more engaged and determined than ever. With my support, he restructured the company to prioritize innovation and integrity, repairing the fractured relationships his family's empire had sustained over the years. Sophia, meanwhile, found herself isolated. Her alliances crumbled, and her influence waned. Yet, despite everything, I felt a pang of pity for her. The sister who had once been everything to me but had chosen a darker path. One evening, Daniel and I sat on the terrace overlooking the city skyline, the cool breeze carrying the distant hum of life below. "I never imagined we'd come this far," he admitted, leaning his head on my shoulder. "Neither did I replied softly, "but I believe in us." He smiled and kissed my forehead. "Me too." Our marriage, once a forced arrangement, blossomed into genuine love. We celebrated milestones quietly, cherishing the simple joys, cooking dinner together, watching sunsets, sharing dreams. But happiness didn't mean the end of challenges. The company's newfound success attracted attention, some welcome, some dangerous. We faced legal battles, corporate espionage, and personal attacks designed to destabilize us. Through it all, Daniel remained my anchor, and I, his steadfast support. One afternoon, as we prepared for a gala honoring Daniel's artistic achievements, a surprise guest arrived, my parents. Their expressions were a mixture of pride and apology. "Amara," my father began, voice thick with emotion, "we were wrong to force you into this. You've shown strength and grace beyond our expectations." Tears filled my eyes. "Thank you. It hasn't been easy, but I've found my place." They embraced me, and for the first time, I felt truly accepted. The gala was a night to remember. Daniel unveiled his latest collection, vibrant, hopeful works that spoke of resilience and love. As applause filled the room, I realized how far we'd come from the shadows of our past. Life moved forward, and so did we. Sophia eventually reached out, seeking forgiveness and reconciliation. It wasn't easy, but healing began with understanding. I forgave her, not for her sake, but for mine. In the quiet moments, Daniel and I dreamed of the future, building a family, expanding the art foundation, and living authentically. Our journey had been painful and unexpected, but it had led us to a place of hope and love. As I looked into Daniel's eyes one evening, I knew this was only the beginning. Together, we would write the rest of our story. The autumn sun filtered softly through the tall glass windows of the renovated studio, bathing the room in a warm, golden glow. Daniel and I stood side by side, surveying the space that would soon become the heart of our new art foundation, a place to nurture creativity, to inspire hope, and to give back to the community that had supported us through so much. This place, Daniel's voice was quiet, almost reverent. "It feels like the start of something truly new. Not just for me, but for us." I smiled, feeling the steady warmth of his hand in mine. A new beginning, where art can heal the wounds we didn't know we had, and where love can grow beyond the past. We moved through the studio, imagining where the canvases would hang, where students might gather, where community events could be held. The space was still raw, but filled with potential, just like us. The foundation's opening gala was a dazzling affair held in a restored warehouse downtown. Guests included celebrated artists, philanthropists, and many friends who had witnessed our journey from the shadows into the light. The room buzzed with excitement and admiration, the walls adorned with Daniel's most expressive works, paintings that spoke of pain, hope, and renewal. I stood beside Daniel as he prepared to speak, the crowd's anticipation palpable. When he began, his voice was steady, carrying the weight of every struggle and triumph. "This foundation is more than just a gallery," he said. "It's a symbol of resilience, a place where brokenness is not an end, but a beginning. We hope to create a space where anyone, regardless of circumstance, can find their voice through art." The applause that followed was thunderous. I caught Daniel's eye and saw the spark of joy and relief. The knowledge that despite everything, we were making a difference. But behind the scenes, life was more complicated than the evening's perfection suggested. Sophia's attempts to reinsert herself into our lives had been cautious but persistent. Her presence was a delicate undercurrent in our otherwise steady flow of progress. Some days, she was distant and cold. Other days, desperate and pleading. One cool evening, I found myself alone with her in the garden, the scent of jasmine heavy in the air. "I've made mistakes," Sophia said, her voice trembling slightly. "I lost sight of who I was, who we were, but I want to find a way back. To the family, to peace." I studied her face, weary but sincere. It was a far cry from the woman who had once pushed me aside so cruelly. "I don't know if we can erase the past," I replied slowly, "but maybe, we can start again. It will take time though. Healing isn't instant." Sophia nodded, tears gathering in her eyes. "Thank you, Amara, that means more than you know." It was a tentative truce, a fragile olive branch. Meanwhile, Daniel's physical recovery was progressing steadily, thanks to relentless therapy and his own fierce determination. The day he took his first unassisted steps in months was nothing short of miraculous. I stood beside him, heart pounding, as he moved slowly but surely across the room. "You did it," I exclaimed, tears streaming down my face. He laughed, breathless but triumphant. "We did it." That moment symbolized more than just regained mobility. It was a testament to our partnership, our love, and our refusal to be defined by limitations. The months that followed settled into a rhythm both challenging and fulfilling. The foundation flourished, expanding its programs to reach underserved communities and support emerging artists. We hosted workshops, mentorship programs, and exhibitions that celebrated diversity and resilience. Our marriage, once a reluctant union, blossomed into a partnership grounded in trust, respect, and a shared vision. Every small victory, a healed wound, a successful event, a kind word, was a brick in the foundation of our new life. Yet, even amid happiness, shadows of doubt occasionally crept in. Rumors and whispers about Sophia's intentions circulated quietly, threatening to disrupt the fragile peace we'd built. Some questioned her sincerity, others warned us to stay vigilant. Daniel and I confronted these whispers together, strengthening our bond rather than allowing fear to divide us. "Whatever comes," Daniel said one evening as we sat by the fire, "we face it as one. No one can break what we've built." I nodded, squeezing his hand. Together, one rainy night, with the soft patter of drops against the window pane, Daniel turned to me with a serious expression. "Amara," he began, voice low and earnest, "I want us to build a family. Not just a legacy, but a real family. One born of love, trust, and hope." My heart swelled. For so long, the thought had seemed impossible, shadowed by fear and uncertainty. "I want that too," I whispered, tears glistening. He smiled, a warmth flooding his eyes. Then let's begin that journey. In the weeks that followed, we took steps to prepare. Doctor's visits. Conversations about the future, hopes whispered in the dark. The idea of creating a family together brought new energy to our lives, a fresh horizon after years of struggle. I often found myself marveling at how far we'd come. From forced marriage to true partnership, from broken dreams to shared hope. One afternoon, as we hosted a workshop for young artists, Sophia arrived unannounced. The air shifted, tension rising as old wounds threatened to reopen. "I came to say goodbye," she said quietly, her eyes sincere. "I am leaving the city to find myself, to make amends in my own way." Her words carried the weight of finality, and for once, I believed her. We hugged, a real, healing embrace, and I wished her well. That night, as Daniel and I sat on the terrace, watching the city lights twinkle below, I realized our story was no longer about pain or sacrifice. It was about growth, forgiveness, and the unbreakable bonds of love. Whatever the future held, we would face it together, hand in hand, heart to heart. The first chill of winter crept through the city's streets, wrapping the world in a quiet, frosty embrace. Inside our home, the warmth was palpable, a refuge against the cold outside. Daniel and I sat near the fireplace, the crackling flames casting dancing shadows on the walls, a soft light illuminating his thoughtful face. It had been almost a year since the art foundation opened, and the journey had been far from easy. But every challenge faced only solidified the bond between us. We had built more than just a successful community project. We had forged a partnership of strength, love, and shared dreams. Tonight felt different though. There was an unspoken tension, a nervous energy pulsing between us. As we prepared for a conversation long overdue, Daniel reached out, gently taking my hand. His fingers were warm, steady, grounding me in the moment. "Amara," he said quietly, voice low with emotion. "There's something I want to say. Something important." I looked up into his eyes, searching for reassurance in the depths of their steady gaze. We've faced so much together. Pain, healing, uncertainty, and through it all, I've come to realize what matters most. You, us. I want to build a future, a family. I want to bring new life into this world, to create hope from the struggles we've endured. My heart skipped a beat. The idea both thrilled and scared me. After all we had been through, could we really take this step? Tears welled in my eyes as I nodded, words catching in my throat. "I want that too, Daniel. More than anything." The weeks that followed were filled with careful planning and tender moments. We navigated doctor's appointments, nutritional changes, and countless conversations about the future. Daniel's health, though improved, remained fragile, and every step forward was a balance of hope and caution. One chilly morning, as golden light spilled into the kitchen, Daniel prepared breakfast. I watched him move carefully, his face etched with determination and love. "You're glowing," he said with a soft smile when he caught me staring. I laughed, the sound light and full of happiness. "You too. I think we're in this together." In every way. Outside our bubble, life continued its complicated dance. Sophia's name lingered in the background, a ghost we tried to avoid but couldn't fully forget. Though her attempts to re-enter our lives had grown infrequent, they never completely ceased. One afternoon, my phone vibrated with a message that sent a chill through me. "Can we meet?" I found something that belongs to Daniel. My fingers trembled as I stared at the screen. Was it a peace offering or a trap? I agreed to meet her at a small, quiet cafe near the foundation. When Sophia arrived, she looked different, softer, more vulnerable than before. "I didn't expect to see you," I said cautiously. She smiled, though it didn't reach her eyes. "I know. I just found this in some old boxers." She pulled out a worn leather-bound sketchbook, its edges frayed from time. Daniel's sketches spilled across the pages, raw, emotional, glimpses into his darkest days and the slow climb back to hope. "I wanted you to have it," Sophia said quietly. "For Daniel. For you. I hesitated, then accepted the gift. Thank you. Back home, Daniel flipped through the pages, memories flooding back. This was when I was lost, he murmured. When I didn't know if I'd ever paint again, or walk, or live without pain. I leaned against him, feeling the weight of his past mingling with our present. It helped me find my way, he added, eyes shining with gratitude. Winter deepened, and with it, our foundation faced new challenges. A rival organization, led by an ambitious entrepreneur with a grudge against Daniel, launched a campaign to undermine our grants and public support. Rumors spread, and whispers in the art community threatened to erode our hard-earned reputation. Late nights were spent poring over documents, strategizing with lawyers, and rallying our supporters. One particularly cold evening, Daniel sat beside me, exhaustion etched into his features. We're being tested, he said, voice weary but resolute. But this foundation, our work, it's bigger than any one person or setback. I squeezed his hand. We fight together. Amid the turmoil, our relationship deepened in quiet ways. We found solace in shared routines, morning coffees, painting sessions, and long talks by the fire. The foundation was thriving despite the attacks, a beacon of hope for many. One day, as I helped organize a children's art workshop, I caught sight of Daniel watching me with a tender smile. The simple joy in his eyes reminded me how far we'd come. Our journey toward parenthood was filled with both anticipation and anxiety. We attended prenatal classes, read books, and dreamed of the life we would give our child. Every kick and flutter in my belly was a miracle, a promise of the future. But as the pregnancy progressed, worries surfaced. Daniel's health still demanded caution. The idea of raising a child while managing his recovery felt daunting. One evening, as snow blanketed the city, Daniel and I sat by the window, watching the flakes fall. I'm scared, I admitted, voice barely above a whisper. What if something goes wrong? He turned to me, eyes steady and full of love. We're not perfect, but we're in this together, and that's enough. The holiday season brought light and warmth to our home. We decorated the foundation's gallery with twinkling lights and festive art created by local children. The community gathered, laughter and music filling the air. On Christmas Eve, Daniel surprised me with a small wooden cradle carved by a local artisan. For our little one, he said, voice thick with emotion. I held it close, tears streaming. Thank you for everything. Sophia reached out again, her tone more desperate this time. She confessed to battling her own demons, seeking therapy, and trying to rebuild her life. We cautiously allowed her back into the family fold, not as a threat, but as a woman seeking redemption. The fragile truce brought moments of awkwardness, but also opportunities for healing. As the months passed, our child grew stronger inside me. I felt a new kind of love blossoming, fierce, protective, and full of hope. Daniel painted more than ever, his art now infused with the joy and anticipation of fatherhood. One afternoon, he unveiled a new piece, a vibrant canvas bursting with color and life, symbolizing the journey we had traveled. It's us, he said simply. The foundation continued to thrive despite the rival foundation's relentless attacks. We organized fundraisers, art fairs, and community outreach, building an unshakable support network. Daniel and I often reflected on how far we had come, from forced marriage and broken dreams to a life filled with purpose and love. One quiet evening, as I felt our baby's first strong kick, Daniel took my hand and whispered, "We've survived so much, and now we're creating something beautiful. A family, a future." I smiled through tears, my heart full. "Yes," I said, "together." Winter gave way to the first hints of spring, and with it came a renewed sense of hope and energy. Our lives, intertwined like brush strokes on a canvas, began to take shape in ways neither Daniel nor I had dared to imagine. The pregnancy was progressing well. Every doctor's appointment brought joy, but also a fresh wave of anxiety. Daniel's health continued to improve slowly but steadily, and together we navigated the delicate balance between celebration and caution. One chilly morning, I sat beside Daniel at the breakfast table, watching the sunlight filter through the window. "Have you thought about names?" I asked, tracing circles on his hand. He smiled, eyes bright with a mix of excitement and nervousness. "A few. Something meaningful. Something that symbolizes strength and resilience." I nodded. "I like that." We spent hours debating names, weaving stories and hopes into each choice. It felt like crafting a legacy before the child had even arrived. The foundation's work flourished despite external pressures. The rival art organization persisted in their attempts to undermine us, but our community's loyalty remained steadfast. We organized exhibitions featuring artists who had overcome adversity, highlighting stories that resonated deeply with our own. At one gala, as Daniel presented a piece symbolizing rebirth, I caught Sophia watching from the sidelines. There was a flicker of admiration in her eyes, perhaps even acceptance. But life, as always, was unpredictable. One afternoon, as I was leaving the foundation, I received a call from the hospital. My voice trembled as the nurse delivered the news. Complications had arisen, and I needed to come in immediately. Panic surged through me as Daniel and I rushed to the hospital, the city's familiar skyline blurred by tears and fear. The next hours passed in a haze of monitors, doctors, and whispered prayers. Daniel held my hand tightly, his presence a lifeline. "We're stronger than this," he whispered. "We'll get through it. Together." Days later, the crisis passed, and our baby was safe. Relief washed over us like a tide, mingling with a renewed appreciation for life's fragility. We returned home, forever changed by the experience. In the weeks that followed, Sophia reached out again, this time with genuine warmth. She expressed regret for past mistakes and a desire to support us in whatever way she could. Though wary, we cautiously welcomed her efforts. Healing, I realized, was not linear, and sometimes it required opening old wounds to allow new growth. Daniel's painting evolved, reflecting our journey through trials and triumphs. His canvases burst with color, emotion, and hope, each stroke a testament to One evening, as we prepared the nursery, Daniel unveiled a portrait of me, bathed in soft light, holding our unborn child. "It's beautiful," I whispered, tears glistening. The day of our baby's arrival approached with a mix of excitement and nervous anticipation. Daniel remained by my side, his hand steady and reassuring. When our child finally entered the world, healthy and strong, a wave of overwhelming love and gratitude filled the room. We named our daughter Amara, after the meaning of grace and strength. Life after the birth was an adjustment, sleepless nights, new responsibilities, and profound joy. Daniel adapted to fatherhood with gentle patience, his love for our daughter evident in every smile and touch. Sophia's presence became more balanced, no longer a threat but a complicated part of our extended family. Though scars remained, time and honesty softened the edges. As spring blossomed fully, our foundation celebrated its first anniversary. The event was a joyous gathering of artists, supporters, and community members. Daniel and I stood hand in hand, watching as lives transformed through art and compassion. Looking back, I marveled at the journey from forced marriage and pain to love, family, and purpose. Every trial had shaped us, made us stronger and more resilient. Together, we faced the future, ready for whatever new chapters awaited. Spring had settled over the city with a soft touch, draping the streets and parks in blossoms and sunlight. Our home had transformed into a sanctuary filled with laughter, love, and the gentle chaos that a newborn brings. Amara's tiny fingers curled around mine, and Daniel's smile grew wider every day as he watched her grow stronger. Life had finally begun to feel whole, yet beneath this fragile peace, unseen currents stirred, threatening to pull us back into a world we thought we had left behind. One afternoon, while I was preparing lunch in the kitchen, Daniel's phone rang insistently from the living room. He rarely answered unexpected calls, especially those from unknown numbers, but this time he paused. The name flashing on the screen was unfamiliar. Mark Chun. Curiosity piqued. Daniel answered, his voice cautious but polite. Hello? Daniel, it's Mark. The voice on the other end was tense and urgent. I need to see you as soon as possible. It's about your accident. My heart jolted. The accident, the terrible day that had changed everything, was something we had buried deep, wrapped in pain and silence. We had moved forward, but never truly understood what had happened. Now, it seemed, the past was clawing its way back. That evening, Mark arrived at our home, his presence somber and serious. He was a tall man, with keen eyes that seemed to miss nothing. Daniel, Mark began. I've been looking into the details surrounding your accident. There are things that don't add up, inconsistencies in reports, missing footage, and testimonies that contradict what was officially recorded. Daniel's face tightened, shadows flickering in his eyes. Are you saying it wasn't an accident? Someone did this to me on purpose. Mark nodded grimly. I believe so. And whoever it was, they wanted to ensure you would never recover. The room seemed to shrink as the weight of Mark's words sank in. I sat frozen, clutching my apron, the walls of our home suddenly closing in with fear and uncertainty. Daniel's jaw clenched, his voice low but resolute. We have to find out who. If they think they can destroy me, they're wrong. Mark laid out his evidence. Old surveillance videos with suspicious edits, financial records showing abrupt shifts, and eyewitnesses who had remained silent out of fear. The more we learned, the darker the picture became. Days turned into sleepless nights. Our home became a war room, cluttered with files and laptops. Daniel and I worked alongside Mark, piecing together the puzzle while trying to protect our daughter from the storm. Sophia, who had been a complicated figure in our lives, surprised me by stepping forward with genuine support. I know how the business world can be ruthless, she said quietly one evening. If there's anyone who knows the players behind this, it's me. Despite past wounds, I recognized her sincerity. We cautiously accepted her help, knowing that to fight this shadow, we needed all the allies we could get. The investigation was draining. Every lead seemed to open a new path of threats and dangers. Anonymous messages warned us to stop digging. A car screeched past our home late one night, its headlights blinding and menacing. Daniel's health wavered under the pressure, but his spirit burned brighter than ever. I won't let fear control us, he said, his voice steady despite exhaustion. We have to see this through. One evening, after a particularly intense day, Daniel and I sat together on the couch, Amara asleep in her crib nearby. I rested my head against his shoulder. Do you ever wonder what life would have been if the accident never happened? I asked softly. He sighed, fingers brushing my hair. Sometimes. But then I remember. Everything we've been through, the strength we found. That pain forged us, made us who we are. I nodded, tears prickling. You're right. We're not just survivors. We're fighters. The turning point came when Mark uncovered a shocking truth. The mastermind behind the sabotage was a former business partner, a man consumed by jealousy and greed. His betrayal had shattered Daniel's life, but justice was finally within reach. We confronted him in a tense meeting, words sharp and cold as steel. You ruined his life for profit, Daniel said, voice trembling with anger. The man's smug smile faltered. It was business. You should have been stronger. But you underestimated us, I added, stepping forward. And you underestimated the power of love and resilience. Justice took its course. The man was exposed, his schemes dismantled. The relief was overwhelming, a dark cloud lifting from our shoulders. In the weeks that followed, Daniel's painting flourished, reflecting a newfound lightness. His canvases glowed with hope and renewal. At a special exhibition titled Resilience, artists shared their stories of overcoming adversity, mirroring our journey. Sophia, now more an ally than an adversary, stood by our side, her presence a symbol of healing. One warm evening, as the city lights twinkled outside our window, Daniel pulled me close. We've come so far, Amara. Thank you for never giving up on me. I smiled, warmth flooding my heart. Always together. As we looked out at the horizon, our daughter asleep in the next room, I knew that no matter what shadows might come, our family would face them hand in hand, stronger, united, and unbreakable. The city was waking up to a gentle drizzle that painted the streets in shimmering reflections. Daniel and I sat quietly at the breakfast table, the soft patter of rain a soothing backdrop to our thoughts. Amara was still asleep upstairs, her peaceful breathing a comforting reminder of the hope we now carried with us. After the storm of revelations and confrontations, a fragile calm had settled over our lives. But as the saying goes, every new beginning carries echoes of old wounds. That morning, an unexpected letter arrived. The envelope was plain but bore a familiar crest, the law firm that had managed my family's affairs for years. I broke the seal carefully, unfolding the letter with growing apprehension. It was from my father. The words on the page were formal yet heavy with unspoken emotions. Dear Amara, I am aware of the recent upheavals involving Daniel and yourself. Our family has faced difficult decisions, and I regret that the past has caused pain to all of us. However, there are matters concerning the family estate and my will that require your attention. Please meet me at the family home this weekend. It is time we have an honest conversation. With hope for reconciliation, Father. The letter stirred a mixture of anxiety and hope inside me. My relationship with my father had always been strained, especially after the incident that forced me into marrying Daniel instead of following my own dreams. Now, it seemed the past was calling me back once again. That weekend, Daniel insisted on accompanying me. You don't have to face this alone, he said, taking my hand firmly. Driving to the old family estate brought back a flood of memories, both painful and tender. The grand halls that once felt suffocating now looked tired and faded, mirroring the cracks in our family's foundation. My father greeted us in the study, his expression guarded but sincere. Amara, he began, I owe you an apology. For years, I prioritized appearances and family honor over your happiness. I see now that I was wrong. I nodded silently, emotions tightening my throat. He continued, there are legal complications with the estate. Your sister's engagement to Daniel, the investments tied to his business. They have entangled our families more than I anticipated. Daniel spoke calmly. We want to resolve this without further conflict. Our focus is on building a future, together. My father studied Daniel, a flicker of respect in his eyes. Very well. But there is one more thing. Your sister, Sophia, has made choices that might jeopardize her standing in the family. You need to be prepared for consequences. The mention of Sophia sent a cold wave through me. Our complicated history was far from over. That night, I confided in Daniel. I want to believe we can heal this family, but I'm scared. Sophia's actions, they might tear everything apart. Daniel pulled me close. Whatever comes, we face it as one. You, me, and Amara. Nothing else matters. In the days that followed, legal meetings and family discussions consumed our time. The estate's tangled affairs revealed secrets, hidden debts, unspoken grudges, and promises broken long ago. Amara's presence in our lives reminded me why the fight was worth it. She was our light in the darkness. Meanwhile, Sophia's behavior grew more erratic. Rumors circulated about her alliances, and her attempts to regain favor became desperate. At one point, she even reached out to me, her voice laced with a fragile vulnerability. Amara, can we talk? I want to understand what I lost. I hesitated but agreed. Our meeting was tense but honest. I shared my journey with Daniel, the pain of sacrifice, and the unexpected love that had blossomed. Sophia's eyes shimmered with tears. I was so blind. I thought standing apart would save me, but it only left me lonely. For the first time in years, I saw my sister not as a rival, but as a person broken by fear and regret. We parted with cautious hope, knowing the road ahead was uncertain, but maybe, just maybe, not impossible. As spring deepened, Daniel and I found strength in each other and in our daughter's bright spirit. Together, we built a life that honored both past struggles and future dreams. One evening, as the sun dipped low, casting golden light through our home. Daniel looked at me with quiet determination. We've survived storms, Amara. Now, it's time to build something lasting. Not just for us, but for Amara. I smiled, heart full. Together. And together, we stepped forward, ready to face whatever the future held.